Hello, everybody, and welcome back. It's Thursday afternoon, and the Mayor, Brian Taylor, and myself, Roly Russell, are pleased to be back with you, giving you another one of our updates for the community. No special guests today, so we were just going to go back and forth a little bit with some points that we wanted to highlight and identify with you. The first one that I wanted to raise is just recognizing some need around destigmatizing the challenge of asking for help. And so recognizing that, you know, we have a lot of vulnerable people out there. We have a lot of people that probably are in a position where maybe they need to ask for help, or it would be good for them to ask for help in whatever shape or form that looks like, that aren't familiar with that space. They're not used to asking for help, but there's a lot of stress on a lot of us. And so please, you know, we have a lot of services in the community that are available. And so if you do feel like you need that, then don't hesitate to reach out and talk to somebody professionally or just personally, socially about some of those needs. And on that note, I'll turn it over to you, Brian.
I'd like to comment a bit on information flow. I know that there have been concerns about us not getting detailed information unless there's an outbreak, and you're watching the statistics from the Interior Health region. But I can tell you right now, the biggest change from Bonnie Henry has been that if you are experiencing symptoms that are what you consider to be COVID symptoms, you can go through your personal GP and get tested. So you now have availability of testing for people who are experiencing symptoms that they think could be COVID. So I think that's going to give a comfort level to people at this point. Back to you, Roly.
Thanks. And we've rescheduled a little bit here to set our Thursday updates for the afternoon, and that's to allow for us to report out on the conversations that the province is having with local governments every Thursday morning. The one piece that was kind of highlighted or mentioned there that I think is relevant to our community is conversations around campgrounds and golf courses and so on, and what are the rules and regulations around that. And the clarity there, or the reminder there, was that as long as businesses are able to follow the rules of the provincial health officer, which is you know, there's different levels of rules for different kinds of operations, but as long as those businesses can adhere to those rules of physical distancing and so on, then they can operate. And that messaging aligns well with our local community and some of the conversations we've been having here with our businesses. A lot of our small businesses closed voluntarily over the last few weeks, and now we're getting to a point where there is consideration for some kind of coordinated reopening of those businesses that can do so safely. And that conversation is ongoing with both local government as well as with the Chamber and Community Futures Boundary, and again highlights the needs, especially after 2018, really for us to make sure we get out there and support those small businesses that have figured out the right policies and procedures to be able to operate safely and open their doors again. Brian, you also mentioned some of those the scams, and I thought maybe you would like to speak briefly to that.
You know, I believe that people are really even more vulnerable in times of stress like this, and there are people out there who want to take advantage of that. So I've had some experiences recently with people who have been contacted by telephone or by email by people who are basically offering them what seems to be opportunities to help people or access to government programs. In fact, there are some phone calls being made by Community Futures to people in business asking for feedback. So you can't be completely skeptical of everything, but I think now is the time to really stay awake that some of those criminals out there are going to take full advantage of your vulnerability at this point. So check where the information is coming from. Be really careful with anything that looks like it's at all suspicious. Ask a friend to check it for you, but don't fall victim to these scams that are out there.
Absolutely, and we did hear, you know, in some of these conversations we were having about these same issues. Just a reminder too that there is some outreach right now from Service BC calling out to speak to individuals. They're masking their numbers when they're doing some of that work. Those are legitimate calls, but they won't be asking you for that same kind of detail that those scams are trying to deliver. also some optimistic news. Service Canada and Service BC are in conversations around potentially trying to deliver some innovative ways to offer some of those services that are hard to access currently with our Service Canada limitations. So stay tuned. Hopefully next week we'll have an update on that. And then there's lots of concern around the flooding, and so some optimistic news as well around that. You know, the current forecasts are good. We're continuing to be levels are dropping slowly in terms of snowpack, and we're now below 75th percentile in terms of how much snow is up there at Grano Creek at least. And so there is some rain in the forecast. River levels are rising. We expect those to continue to rise over the weekend. So just a reminder too, just to be safe around unstable banks and so on. A high river can be dangerous regardless of whether it is topping the banks or not. So please be very cautious. But hopefully we have good news continuing to come around the flood risk for the boundary.
So I hate to end things off on a negative note, but someone broke into our light at Saddle Mountain and stole a bunch of pieces off of our light there that guides planes into our airport. And so we are now in a position where we cannot have night flights until that is repaired. A really unfortunate situation. In this pandemic situation, it could endanger lives. So shame on you for doing that. And if you have any information, contact the RCMP. Roly.
Thanks very much. That's all I had. I guess again a reminder: try to reduce that social distance if you can, while maintaining your physical distance. So reach out, give somebody a call, have a video chat, whatever you might do to wave to your neighbor and so on. So thanks everybody.
Stay safe.